I guess for me, and that is like, I just want to do good. I just want to do what I do and be a part of helping other people. And I always say the work that I do isn't about me. It's really about helping people use their gifts in a way that I've been blessed to be able to use mine and make an impact and to watch that happen.
Hi there, it's Casey Farmer here with the Build with BBB podcast. I'm your host, and I am here with Sharina Perry of Utopia Plastix. Welcome, Sharina, to the Build with BBB podcast.
Thank you, Casey, for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, so Sharina will be speaking at our 3rd annual Revere Revel conference, which means to honor and celebrate women, and I can think of no one better to be in our 2023 lineup. So let's hear about Utopia Plastix. Sharina, take us down that line. What is it for those who haven't heard?
So Utopia Plastix is a plant-based alternative to your traditional fossil fuel polymers. And it is a drop-in replacement so that a manufacturer not only experiences the eco benefits of a alternative to petroleum, but the mechanical properties that come with that as well. The reality is what we've learned through this journey is I could claim all of the eco benefits all day long, but at the end of the day, it has to be able to yield the results and produce the product. And our Utopia Plastix, how we get there is driven by our Utopia model. That is a circular model that's truly a sustainable ecosystem that is guided by farming, processing, manufacturing to distribution of end products.
Circle. I love that. Continual. I love the story of how you created your product. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, it started first by my study of plant material. I actually started studying plant material in depth in 2018. My nephew was diagnosed with neurofibromatosis 2, and I started studying plant material because I had learned that it could shrink tumors. So I was really more and really remain committed to that as well, to using plants as really providing solutions. But in the process, I learned that the crops that I had been studying could be an alternative to petroleum, cotton, and wood. And one day in my kitchen, I decided to address the environmental issue around the banning of straws and single-use plastics and the impact. And I made a straw in my kitchen, and here we are today.
That's probably my favorite part of the whole story. I think it's amazing that your mission came down to helping someone else. You saw a need, and so you just dived in, but you did it in your kitchen. So this is for, any entrepreneur who's stumbling upon this podcast, often you don't need any kind of fancy equipment or anything crazy. You just need, a little passion for what you're doing and some excitement and some experimentation. Would you agree?
I would absolutely, because the reality is before we had all of these fancy labs and we had all these fancy ways of doing things, it started in our kitchen. It started at home. And that's how we built the process. It's interesting to go back in the history of great developments throughout our time and how many of them were developed in the same way. Of course, I wasn't thinking that when I just wanted to see if it actually could work and happen. And when I decided I was going to make it in my kitchen, it came from really, I had a paper straw, and my years of entrepreneurship. I think that I'm a person that I like solutions. I don't like the mask of what's not real. I need a solution. So if you say there's a problem, don't tell me and keep recycling the problem. Let's get to a solution. But not only get to a solution, but let's make it sure it's a holistic solution, something that's not going to create more problems. And so you see it so often. And so for me, it was like, I had studied this. I had dove into over 600 white papers. And for me, it was like, this seemed to be a solution. And through my entrepreneurship journey, my entrepreneurial journey, I had learned so much and saw so much that I just knew that something needed to be done different. And walking that out and deciding to make the straw in my kitchen and then seeing the results, that moment, that evening was really about, so what do you do now? What do you do now, Sharina, that you have? Inventor was not what I ever saw on my resume. I didn't, that's not what I was seeking to do. The picture of what, it was something bigger. It was something that just mattered to me, that I couldn't sit and live out the rest of my life knowing that there was a problem and I wasn't going to actively participate in the solution.
Have you always, has your mindset always been that? You say like, I'm solution focused. So tell me, like, what would point to young Sharina being the inventor and, CEO and founder of the company?
I would look back now and say, yeah, it had to be, because if you tell anybody that knew Sharina as the young girl, if you anybody that went to school with me, it really was who I am. I'm not different than, it's just you as a young person without all the access and seeing it, you simply believe that the problem might be too big for you to solve. You might believe it that it's somebody else's, or you're asking yourself, how do you really do it? How do you engage the process? So when I was a young girl, a little girl, I saw, I learned things. I was a big reader. I paid close attention. My grandfather owned a lot of land. He transacted business as well, but my grandfather couldn't read. And so when I want to say I was 6 or 7 years old, my grandfather used to have me read all of his mail, all of his documents, his contracts, everything. And I would watch his reaction sometimes to what he had read. And I think it was just me paying attention. But I also could see things in the world around me. I had loving parents, a lot of structure in our home. But that wasn't the case for everyone that was around me. So you still, even though I lived in this space of this prism of my world, I was still able to see what happened in the world of people around me. And I didn't understand disparity. I didn't understand why bad things were happening. And I think that's, as kids, you are so hopeful. So for me, I developed this world called Utopia when I was younger. And in Utopia, we solved problems. And in Utopia, we worked together and we took care of other people. And it was really about, I grew up in a faith-based home. It was like, if we put aside our own selfishness, if we put aside our own tendencies, and we chose to do it God's way, what would that look like? So for me, that was imagining what the future could be, what the world could be if we intentionally chose to do that. And so that was how I dealt with everything. And I think that became the lens that I began to be hopeful for whatever outcome, to not dwell in the problem, but take problems and challenges and learn the lessons and walk through it and hope for the better thing on the other side.
So you talked about structure, how, and your faith and how that's really shaped your life. How have you brought those things to running your business?
When I first became an entrepreneur, and prior to me even becoming an entrepreneur, I was the director of operations for a company, and I had hundreds of employees that were working for me. Those people had real lives. They had families that they were taking care of. They were in school. They were moms. They were elders who had grown and had taken care of families. And the reality is, I lived with all of these different experiences and saw different things that people walk through. And I, as being a part in leading them, you can't help but have a strong sense of empathy for what happens in people's lives. So I felt like people sacrifice a lot when they come into the doors of a business. They prepared to come in. And so I wanted people that worked for me to come in and we do what we do and we accomplish business. But when they walk out of the door, they leave it there because they had devoted so much of the time of their day to give to us. And it wasn't up to me to rob them or take away from that. And so I needed the culture within what we did to be something that they enjoyed too. So they didn't take the mental weight home with them. So when I started Utopia and when I started my business in my 20s, first of all, that was the culture that drove what we did. So we developed this relationship of family and these bonds. And when the culture is set, people that don't fit the culture automatically, they feel it. They don't fit. But the best part about it, it wasn't a culture that was driven by everybody that was the same. What made the culture work was people from different backgrounds, different races, different socioeconomic statuses, different experiences, different educations, different disciplines that came together and brought their world to be a part of our collective world. And then it helped broaden the horizon for everybody. And today, Utopia is that. It's really about people coming together from different backgrounds, different cultures, different races, different experiences, different disciplines. And this team that we built were strangers that have come together with one common thing. They were stewards, and they're busy in the work of doing good. So, and they've spent their careers in doing it. And they are leaders. They are well accomplished in what the world would see as success, and the level of people of the team of people I get to lead, and I get to just operate in this role. I don't like the term boss or all of the titles. We're collectively coming together to accomplish something. And we all have a role that's responsible for getting it done. So that's what exists in the culture of what we do. And then through strategic partners, we understand that they have a role too. Let people be good at what they do. Don't try to take that away, because if you allow people to be good at what they do, you will find that it will build into a better version of you. I remember when I was, as I mentioned, I was young and starting in business, and I was hiring all of these people, and they were smart. And sometimes the tendency can be to be threatened by those people, those minds. And I remember the owner at that time telling me to not ever be afraid of hiring people smarter than you. And I said, okay. And he says, after all, I hired you. And it was like, remember that you brought them in. And the goal is for you all to grow and build and be better together. And if ever you feel threatened, if ever you allow that pride, that ego, that insecurity to drive or take precedent within an organization, that's the first, those blocks, those building stones that built that organization are going to fall. They're going to collapse. They're going to crumble. And then all this foundation you built is not going to have strength on it. So that's really how I love the fact I have smart people around me. It is, they make me look good. There were times when I didn't know. You're trying to figure it out and you're young, and I gave up too much of my time for things that didn't matter, believing that I had to make all of these connections, and then I found myself depleted, right? So I think that as a young executive or in an organization, it's so important to prioritize the things that matter. And I had this imbalance that existed. I mean, I was a mom at 24. I was an executive. And then moving into owning my own business shortly after that, and believing that I'm doing all of this to accomplish this for my family and to make my family better. And the reality is that I'm there day to dark working. My daughter's coming to see me at the office more than should. I didn't have balance. If I were to correct anything, I would have figured out the balance and to be able to show up for the things that matter to me. So I learned to prioritize things, right? I learned that my spirit had to come first, meaning I had to feed the spiritual person, the person that helped Sharina show up for anything else. And then to put my family and those that I love next, and then my business, and then community. And that's not what you hear most often from people. But the reality is, if I don't have my spirit in check, I'm going to become depleted. And then I may be masking and not really having joy in what I'm doing. And then my family, a lot of times we say we're doing all of this for the people we love, but they're the ones that are giving up the most time with us so that we can accomplish these other things. So when you have your family support for what you do in business, because you made sure that you put them first, then how you're able to go and attack and accomplish what you need to do in business doesn't seem like work anymore.
It's those building blocks you mentioned earlier.
It absolutely is. And then when I can be good to my business and I'm taking care of my business, it can give me the resources and the energy to show up for a community. So it became a way that I had to learn when to say yes and when to say no, and to make sure that I was always checking whether I had balance.
Let's talk about community. I know community is really important to you, and showing up authentically for your community is too. What advice would you give to, we've talked about our younger selves or young people in business, or maybe a young, hopeful female entrepreneur. What advice would you give about getting involved in your community, and why is that so important?
I was doing a podcast. It was Intentional Perspective with Sharina Perry with Perry Publishing and Broadcast. And I was able to have the opportunity to interview some of the first McDonald's franchisee owners that were African American. And what they said in that interview was to make sure the community sees you. Sometimes people look at that as making sure the community sees your success. But that's not really what that is. Making sure the community sees you when we've done and gone in certain things is also about representation. It's about helping your community believe that it's possible. And then what we have gained through our success can be the caveat that leads to it not being so difficult for a community member. And so for me, I intentionally chose to put myself in a space where I would be able to have relationships, to be in rooms, to be part of organizations that I would be willing to walk in that door and then make sure that I was leaving it open for others behind me in a way that not that they could just be in that room, but that they could take up space and that they could have a voice and that we could understand that community really is about bringing our collective experiences together to build for a better community. So being a part of the community has meant for me that it transcends every racial divide. I mean, that I have friends with relationships and a presence in all of the communities in Oklahoma, in around me, in the cultures, and to champion for them and understand that at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. So we need to kind of break down those divisive things that are used to divide us.
On September 20th, we are partnering with some amazing women in our community, including you, for our Revere and Revel Women's Conference. Do you want to give a little teaser about what you're going to be talking about?
You know, faith, focus, and fulfillment. Because to be empowered, there really has to be a process. It's a journey. And so we're going to talk about my journey to Utopia and how faith, focus, and fulfillment has brought me to a place to be able to run my race to the full.
You can find tickets at BBB Central OK if you're interested. And I think that we're going to have a room full of women who are all excited to champion each other, and hopefully some men too, because we need the men to get behind women as well.
It is so important. I've spent my career in male-dominant industries. Mm-hmm. So for me, even in this journey, there have been many women that have showed up, even some in a way that inspired me that didn't even know. They may have been an hourly worker in a manufacturing facility that was leading a team, and then watching them, their kids call and they need something, and them balancing that out. That allows me to see myself too. But there were also so many men, and there continue to be men that are huge cheerleaders and supporters and stand in the gap and are a key part of what we do. So men have been major allies. And they have really let me know in so many ways that they really support the efforts of what we're doing.
Yeah, I agree. There's a few men in my life who have always lended time and energy to help teach me things. And without them, I don't know where I would be.
Okay.
Tell me about some women who have really impacted or helped you on your journey to Utopia.
Okay. Well, first, of course, there's always where it starts in the home. My mom was my mom's a strong woman, and she's a really good steward. In the process, every day, my daughter's my executive assistant, so she shows up to keep me straight and keep me organized and in order, but she just leads with a really good intention and spirit, and she's so smart and so, I want to be her when I grow up. If people say that, I don't feel like I think she just has so many more gifts than me. But I have other women that are on my team and I don't want to miss any of them. So I hope I'm going to capture all of their name or actually I might miss some in just this time, but there are women that are software engineers, CFOs, financial, chemists, marketing, women that have so many skills and disciplines, some that even just regularly reach out to say, are you good? Are you okay? That's your village, that's your tribe, and that understand that you're walking a path and all you need is sometimes that little voice behind you to keep going, because the reality is we're all going to have those moments. I'm not your gossip friend. I'm not your gossip woman. I'm not your let's stay in this problem type of. That's just not me. I'm not even the girlfriend that's going to call you every day, or the woman or friend like that. That's just never been my personality. But to have also those women that I can call and be authentic with and say, I'm challenged here. And that they give me that space to be human. When the world thinks you can accomplish everything, it's so important that you have women. And there are women around me that allow me to be human.
When you talk about being human, tell me how you work that into the framework of Utopia with your team. Showing up authentically. Authenticity is something we've talked about over and over again. How do you instill that?
I'm a working leader. The biggest thing as a leader is paying attention. It's not, it's understanding what your team is walking through. I get better performance and more commitment from people. We can accomplish so much more and do so with a smaller team when you know you have people that are very gifted, people that are smart, people that have led teams. You don't have to. I am not a micromanager. So we have a task to do. How are we going to get it done? And when everybody has the same goal to get it done, you understand that collectively that's what we're going to do. I don't have to come and ever yell or even be in the space of that thought. Like, we really like working together. I mean, and that's if the place you work should be where you enjoy. And that's the way I feel about our team. That's the way I feel about when our team comes together. It's like we're coming together and we're doing great things. It's a lot, don't get me wrong, we're working, we're accomplishing, but the attitude makes it easier for us.
Any fun projects or anything on the horizon that you want to share with our podcast listeners today? Anything exciting?
Oh yeah, we have a lot of great things that are coming. Some of it is sometimes mind-blowing, and we're walking through this process and we're like, we really are changing the world, and we're in rooms with some people might talk Fortune 500, we're talking with the leading companies in the world, governments, initiatives. We are, but soon we're coming up with, we're bringing in a couple of multi-billion-dollar companies to come together here in Oklahoma at the end of this month. And what we've done is we brought these companies because they represent kind of what exists through our Utopia model. We're bringing in a client, a buyer who's $1 billion company. We're bringing in a converter, $1 billion company, a distributor as well, been in business for over 100 years. And we're all going to show up at a local manufacturer and to come together how we collectively, everybody has an invested interest, and how we're going to carry out and deliver it to the market. And that's really about what we do. We are about creating opportunity. We just as a team got to go back. We have a partnership with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and we deliver bags to their facilities. And that was fun to just have our team go out and be a part of that, and how excited they were at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. But we deploy our resins around the world, and some pretty big announcements that are coming soon. And we're really excited about that, but we have to wait because we want to make those announcements when they make those announcements.
So where can people find and connect with Utopia?
So we're, of course, our website, utopiaplastix.com, and that's plastix.com. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Instagram, Facebook. Follow us, share. If you have a connection relationship, you're a manufacturer and you want a sustainable material, here we are. That's what we offer. We don't make products, we make resins. And so, but we help you if you need to find someone to produce a product.
Thank you for listening to our podcast, Build with BBB. You can find our podcast on Spotify, YouTube podcast coming soon, also to some more platforms. Make sure to follow Sharina's journey. She is pretty active on LinkedIn, I'll say. I'll give you that little plug, so follow along with what she's doing. I think you spoke at another conference earlier this year, and obviously you do a lot of things in the community, so stay in touch there.
September 8th.
September 8th, what do you have?
I'll be on the NASDAQ sign in Times Square as the Inventor of the Year during New York Fashion Week.
Okay, so mark your calendars, September 8th, to check that out. That's pretty amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Make sure to follow us, Better Business Bureau Serving Central Oklahoma, at BBB Central OK, and we will see you for our next podcast.